A reading from John, chapter 12, verses 1 through 8. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, the home of Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. There they gave a dinner for him. Martha served, and Lazarus was one of those reclining with him. Mary took a pound of costly perfume made of pure nard, anointed Jesus' feet, and wiped them with her hair. The house was filled with the fragrance of the perfume. But Judas Iscariot, one of his disciples, the one who was about to betray him, said, "Why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor?" He said this not because he cared about the poor, but because he was a thief. He kept the common purse and used to steal what was put into it. Jesus said, "Leave her alone. She bought it so that she might keep it for the day of my burial. You always have the poor with you, but you do not always have me."
The inspiration for our series, The Beautiful Empty, comes from a quote attributed to the 17th century French philosopher Blaise Pascal, who spoke of the, quote, God-shaped vacuum in the heart of everyone, which, as he said, cannot be satisfied by any created thing, but only by God. The theme of the God-shaped hole in the human heart has found widespread resonance in modern times, as evidenced by the number of popular songs that have referenced it over the years. If you Google "Hole in My Heart," you'll find original songs by that title from Rick Springfield, Cyndi Lauper, and Rod Stewart. Another by the title "There's a Hole in the Heart." At least two more by the title "God-Shaped Hole." Another titled "Wholehearted" by that 90s band Extreme. And of course, Bruce Springsteen's famous variation on the theme, "Everybody's Got a Hungry Heart." Lay down your money and you play your part. Everybody's got a hungry heart. What are we filling that hunger, that God-shaped hole with? It's an old ironic habit of humans that whenever we feel the faintest hint of spiritual emptiness or spiritual hunger in our lives, we reach for just about any cheap substitute to fill it. Material possessions, the affirmation of others, mind-numbing substances, titles, degrees, achievements, social media likes. But the invitation in the season of Lent is to allow that emptiness we so often feel to lie exposed long enough to see what it is we really are truly hungry for, and to point us to what it is that might truly satisfy us. It's an invitation to simplify, to declutter, to free ourselves from the slavery of always wanting more. About 10 years ago, I read about a man named Jose Mujica, who at that time was the president of Uruguay. During Mujica's decade-long presidency, he became known as El Presidente Más Pobre, the poorest president, because of his modest Spartan lifestyle. Instead of living in a presidential mansion, Mujica chose to live with his wife in a ramshackle farmhouse on a small plot of land outside of Montevideo, where they grew chrysanthemums to sell in local markets. Instead of being chauffeured by a driver in a limousine, he drove himself to work in an old Volkswagen Beetle. While in office, Mujica was paid a monthly salary of $12,000, but lived off only 10% of his wages, donating the remaining 90% to charities that serve the poor. Mujica said that his simple lifestyle was a matter of freedom. He said, if you don't have many possessions, then you don't need to work all your life like a slave to sustain them. Mujica discovered the meaning of freedom after serving 13 years in prison, 10 years in solitary confinement, for his role as a revolutionary leader and a freedom fighter in the 1960s. His only companions in prison, he said, were a tiny frog and a family of rats with whom he shared his bread rations. After his release, he made this conscious choice to forego the trappings of power and wealth. And he quoted the Roman philosopher Seneca as someone central to his thinking. He says, "It's not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, who is poor." Have you ever said to yourself, "I'd like to simplify my life"? Have you ever thought to yourself, I never make enough time for what matters most to me"? We all know the burden of the cluttered life, where we are rich in possessions and responsibilities, reputation or titles, but still we long for meaning and purpose, life balance or peace of mind, where we sense intuitively that we already have more than we really need, yet we still can't resist the impulse to acquire more. Mujica called that slavery, but it's not simply bondage to our possessions. It's more often bondage to what our possessions symbolize. Appearance is the real master we serve. The image we project, the impressions others have of us, is this not our real slavery? Years ago, Jeffrey Bloom wrote a book entitled Living with Spirit in a Material World. In that book, he named the challenges of living in a world that values the appearance of things over the meaning of things. And he posed several questions to help us determine how free we really are. He asks, do you ever check labels? Is it more important that something is made by the right designer than whether it's made of good quality? He asks, are you embarrassed because of your possessions or background? Are you afraid of people who have less than you? Do you avoid people whose appearance identifies them as poor or in distress? Do you hide behind material masks, he asks? Do you use your possessions to disguise an impoverished emotional and spiritual life? Do you, he asks, think of yourself as a resume? Our story from John's Gospel draws this stark contrast between two people in Jesus' inner circle, one of whom values the meaning of things, the other the appearance of things, one of whom embodies a life of simplicity, the other duplicity. The word simplicity is often misunderstood today. We tend to associate simple people with a lack of intelligence or shrewdness, someone who's naive or unsophisticated, maybe even a little gullible. But did you know the word simplicity actually originates from a Greek concept of having a healthy or focused eye, suggesting that how we see things outside of us affects how we are on the inside. Simplicity is the quality of being clear-eyed, of seeing others or situations honestly, without an agenda or calculation or guile. In fact, Jesus once used the word simplicity. In the Greek, it's haplous. He used that to describe how our eyes, as he said, are like a lamp to our body. He said, when your eye is simple, then your whole body is full of light. And when it is diseased, then your body is full of darkness. So simplicity is seen with mental honesty. It's the virtue of someone who is free from pretense and hypocrisy, which means the opposite of simplicity is duplicity. The duplicitous person is not honest in appearance or presentation. There's someone who gives a false impression or belies his or her true intentions by using deceptive words or actions. And in our story from John, we meet two characters, one of whom embodies a life of simplicity, the other duplicity. In the story, Jesus goes with his disciples to the home of Lazarus, for this unexpected, improbable party. Lazarus, we are told, had been dead just 24 hours earlier. Jesus had raised him back to life, and Lazarus' two sisters, Mary and Martha, they want to celebrate their brother's resurrection, so they throw a party. And at some point during that party, Mary slips out of the room and later returns with an alabaster jar in her hands. Without saying a word, she kneels at the feet of Jesus, and she breaks the neck of the jar, and suddenly the entire room is filled with the fragrance of spikenard, a costly perfume imported from the Himalayas that smells of a mixture of mint and ginseng. This perfume is more fragrant than Dolce & Gabbana and more expensive than L'Or de Jaor. There's nothing like it in the world, and Mary apparently has a full pound of it, which is worth about a year's wages, as much today as something like $20,000 in today's currency. Typically, only royalty or those in holy office were anointed with this nard. It was usually kept in a sealed alabaster jar and could last for decades, but once it was opened, the nard would spoil and lose its pungency. Mary, we are told, cracks the neck of the jar and pours the spikenard over the feet of Jesus, every last drop of it, rubbing it over his thick calluses into the dry, cracked skin of his feet until, with great tenderness, she dries both feet with the mop of her own hair. And the fragrance transforms the entire house. It's a gesture of pure love, of unabashed devotion. The fragrance, the simplicity of the deed, it's breathtaking. Everyone's speechless except for Judas. Why hasn't this perfume been sold, he protests, and the money given to the poor? Imagine, he says, the good we could have done, all the hungry children and widows we could have fed. What a waste. Well, who could argue with Judas, really? He does have a valid point. When you consider all the poor, hungry, hurting people in the world and the magnitude of human need all around us, it's hard to justify Mary's act. It seems like such a wasteful, superfluous gesture. She might as well have just taken a year's wages in cash and thrown it to the wind, because once that nard is gone, it's gone for good. I was in the middle of a capital campaign at my former church. We were raising a couple $1 million to actually build a church building when a member came to see me, a deeply compassionate man who always participated in every mission project, every trip to the food bank and soup kitchen. His concern, his compassion for the poor was real and genuine. And he said to me, I'm conflicted about this building campaign. Imagine all the good we could do with $2 million. All the poor and needy we could lift out of poverty. Does the world really need another church building? It wasn't until years later that I stumbled upon an answer to his question. It came from a line by the Russian novelist Fyodor Dostoevsky, who said, "Beauty will save the world." One of the defining characteristics of modern life is the diminishment of beauty and joy and wonder and enchantment in the name of equality and efficiency, utility, ROI, and moderation. Instead of measuring the value of human experience by asking, is it beautiful? We tend to ask simply, is it useful? And we underestimate the redemptive power of aesthetic and moral beauty to inspire and even to heal. We easily forget how an experience of beauty or transcendence can elevate the human soul and let in some light and color and texture in an otherwise monochrome and mechanistic world. Beauty will save the world. Unless, of course, duplicity stands in its way. Judas may have a point about the good perfume having, been just wasted. It could have been sold and done some more good, but his real problem is that he's just not sincere. Judas, we're told, is the one who keeps the common purse, pays the bills, and we're told that he's always skimming off the top when no one's looking. His secret motivations then are clear. His stated concern for the poor, it's merely a ruse to cover his own greed. It's always been convenient to point the finger of judgment at Judas, and yet there is a part of Judas in every one of us. We are all masters in calculation and duplicity. If you question this, ask yourself questions like this. Do I ever try to impress others with my degrees or titles or my honors? Do I use my possessions to try to convey to others that I'm successful? Do I ever try to give the impression that I'm more saintly than I really am? Do I ever use words or nuanced speech to conceal my true intentions? Am I preoccupied with the opinions that others have of me? Do I ever embellish stories about my past so as to appear more successful? Like Judas, we live with such great pressure to sell ourselves, to promote ourselves, to appear holier than we are, as to appear someone we're not. When that happens, like Judas, we become not only incapable of being loved for who we are, but unable to love others without calculation. While there's a Judas in all of us, there is also a Mary in us too. The one who deep down desires nothing more in the moment but to crack that jar of spikenard and to fill the room with fragrance and to demonstrate her love for Jesus, and in doing so to add beauty to the world. The Mary in us longs to do the spontaneously beautiful, ridiculously extravagant, unreasonably decadent thing, something that doesn't add up to profit, something that has no agenda other than to add beauty to the world, to the moment, knowing that there are fleeting moments in our lives when we cannot save the best for later. Annie Dillard, the Pulitzer Prize-winning writer, once gave some great advice for writing, which is also great advice for life. She says, "One of the things I know about writing is this: spend it all, shoot it, play it, lose it, all right away, every time. Do not hoard what seems good for a later place in the book or for another book. Give it all now." She says the impulse to save something good for a better place later is the signal to spend it now. Something more, she says, will arise for later. These things fill from behind, from beneath, like well water. Similarly, she says, the impulse to keep to yourself what you have learned is not only shameful, it is destructive. Anything you do not give freely and abundantly becomes lost to you. You open your safe and find ashes. The poet Wendell Berry puts it another way. Every day, he says, do something that won't compute. Love the Lord, love the world, work for nothing, love someone who does not deserve it. Give your approval to all you cannot understand. Invest in the millennium, plant sequoias. Expect the end of the world. Laugh. Laughter is immeasurable. Be joyful, though you have considered all the facts. This is what Mary does. She pours the whole bottle on Jesus' feet, wipes them with her hair, filling the house with fragrance. It was the right thing to do. It was the fragrant thing to do. The smell of death and destruction was all around that house, thanks to Lazarus, but she did the fragrant thing here. Judas was about to betray Jesus, and Peter would soon deny Jesus. Their whole world was about to unravel. so she adds beauty to the world. Jesus was on his way to Jerusalem where he would be arrested and beaten and crucified. So what does she do? She does something to celebrate the gift that he was still here right now. She doesn't know what the future will bring. She only seizes the moment to do the beautiful thing, the fragrant thing. Years ago, a poignant little film called Darius Goes West documented the true story of this little group of young people, boys, one of whom was named Darius. Darius in the film has muscular dystrophy. He's 15 years old. He has lost his mobility. His brother has just died of the same disease. Darius has never left his little town in Georgia. So these friends of his, they pool together their resources and they take him to California, hoping to get him on the MTV show Pimp My Ride, hoping to upgrade his wheelchair. And as they head west, they stay at a 5-star hotel in New Orleans. They take him on a swamp boat ride in Louisiana, a rafting trip on the Colorado River. They stop at the Grand Canyon. They wheel Darius to the very edge while he sits speechless and his eyes fill with tears. When they arrive in California, they take him to the Pacific Ocean where they wheel him through the sand and into the water, lifting him up so he can stand as the waves crash over his body, and he laughs uncontrollably. It's a beautiful, beautiful scene. It's a story that reminds me of Mary cracking the bottle, pouring it out, adding to the fragrance of one person's life. The theologian Paul Tillich witnessed many of his contemporaries, including Dietrich Bonhoeffer, suffer for speaking out against the atrocities of Hitler. After the war, Tillich wrote a commentary on this very passage from John's Gospel. In writing about Mary's extravagant gesture with this perfume, he had Bonhoeffer and others in mind when he wrote these words. He said, "The history of humankind is the history of men and women who wasted themselves and were not afraid to do so. They did not fear to waste themselves in the service of a new creation. They wasted out of the fullness of their hearts. Without the abundant heart, nothing great can happen." So he writes, "Do not suppress in yourselves the abundant heart, the waste of self-surrender. Keep yourselves open for the creative moment. Do not suppress the impulse to do what Mary did." Our takeaways for today: anything you do not give freely and abundantly becomes lost to you. So keep yourself open for the creative moment. And every day, do something to add to the beauty of the world.